Hey yo, what's good? It's your boy Mixtape Moth, and I'm just gonna hit y'all with my thoughts on this upcoming versus battle. So Timberland and Swiss Beats decided that it was finally time to honor and show some love to 80s hip hop. It was long overdue, but now we are scheduled to have a versus battle to honor two rap superstars from the 80s, the Blastmaster KRS-One and King Asiatic, the Prince of Darkness, Big Daddy Kane. Now, given the competitive and battle hungry spirits of both Kane and KRS, we know that this will be a competitive battle and not just a concert or a friendly celebration. These are two very influential rap legends cut from the same cloth but a bit different stylistically, whose faces both belong on the Mount Rushmore of 80s hip hop. Each have classic albums under their belt. You wouldn't have had artists like Biggie, Tupac, Scarface, Nas, Jay-Z, Eminem, Kendrick, and J. Cole if it wasn't for 80s rap gods like Kane, KRS, Rakim, G-Rap, Chuck D, Slick Rick, and EPMD laying down blueprints and paving the way. Hopefully, this event will inspire a younger audience to learn more about Big Daddy Kane and KRS-One because let's keep it a buck. If you aren't 35 and up, then you likely have somewhat of a knowledge gap or listening gap to fill. But that's what makes this type of versus so important. When I thought about this matchup, right off the bat, I was reminded of how skilled both Kane and KRS are at live performances. They are both natural born MCs who know how to move the crowd. So that alone makes it a little more challenging to predict who the victor will be, since we know that neither are going to drop the ball when it comes to stage presence or live performance. When I created a potential list of songs for each round, I quickly realized that this battle could go either way, especially when their 80s songs were being played, because both have an exceptionally strong 10-pack of 80s hits. But I think I'd even give Big Daddy Kane the slight edge if we are strictly staying in the 80s. But I wonder if things will get a little tricky in the second half or whenever they decide to play 90s music, especially for Big Daddy Kane. And I say this because KRS-One recorded more music than Kane did during the mid to late 90s. That's just a fact. That being said, I am not suggesting that Kane doesn't have songs from the 90s that he could perform, because he could pick from his following 90s albums: Taste of Chocolate, Prince of Darkness, Daddy's Home, Looks Like a Job for Kane, and Veterans Day. However, these 90s releases from Big Daddy Kane never received the widespread praise that his 80s albums did. And I have to note that the KRS-One albums from the 90s were a little more memorable and talked about overall. I mean, KRS-One had his remaining BDP albums in the early 90s, then his solo projects like Return of the Boom Bap in 1993, his self-titled 1995 release, which is my favorite KRS-One album, and of course his 1997 album, I Got Next. Not to mention his numerous features, soundtrack songs, and collaborations with Channel Live, Mad Lion, and others. Don't get it twisted though. Big Daddy Kane does have some dope 90s songs that he can pull from as well, whether we are talking about features, freestyles, or important posse cuts. I know KRS-One has some really standout tracks produced by DJ Premier, but there's Big L's Platinum Plus produced by Primo that he could play, as well as a very slept on and underrated Primo track that I feel rarely gets talked about from the early 2000s, entitled Any Type of Way. That was a very dope and slept on Primo and Kane track. Also, something to be mindful about: Big Daddy Kane can also perform songs that he had written for Biz Markie and others. That is an option that will likely make things pretty interesting. At the moment, I am leaning slightly towards KRS-One, but I would be a fool to sleep on or underestimate Big Daddy Kane. It is going to be a pretty tight and unpredictable matchup, to say the least. Let me know in the comment section who you have winning and why. It's your boy Mixtape Moth. I'm signing out, but be sure to hit that like button and please subscribe. Versus upcoming battle, KRS-One, Big Daddy Kane 1.